Hi everyone, here's Maria Carmen. Today I have a new guest, it's Glenn, and he will show us some of his project for Project Catalyst Fund 5. How are you doing today, Glenn?
I'm great. Thanks, Maria, and thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to invite projects to come to the show and explain themselves of what they are planning to do, how they are planning it, and how they're going to show the community the results. So if you're a proposal and you have a project and you would like to show in my channel, please get in touch with me. Glenn, let's get down to business. Do you have anything else to show to us, to share your screen?
Sure. If I may, Maria, I'd like to just introduce you maybe to Empowa overall in terms of what we're seeking to achieve, and then take you to a little bit of a description of what we're talking in the Fund 5 application, which is the Grow Africa, Grow Cardano category. And really ours is a very, very real world application in terms of what we're seeking to achieve in growing Africa and growing Cardano. So yeah, I'd like you to take you through that. But if I'll start just with who we are and what the challenges is that we're seeking to achieve, if I can do that.
Sure. The stage is yours, the way you want to take it.
Thank you kindly. Okay, great. Super. Can you see my screen?
Yeah. If you want to put in a slide, yeah, perfect.
Fantastic. Okay, so Empowa, what we are seeking to achieve is to become a platform to enable African communities to improve living conditions and create wealth, initially through property. And what that means effectively is, if we understand the challenge of Africa, 84% of people in Africa do not have a permanent roof over their heads. Now that's almost 1 billion people. The shortfall is 50 million homes. And many people, the assumption is immediately that that problem and that challenge is due to poverty. You know, people don't have enough money. And as in most of these things, it's actually not. It's not a question of poverty. It's actually a systemic issue. And the systems have not worked for the environment. And it's that challenge that we're seeking to address. So just to give you an example, there's Mozambique, a country of over 30 million people, and there's 600 mortgages. Now, why? And there are a number of reasons for that. And as you can see here, the challenge, if anybody's paying 45% on a mortgage, nobody can afford a house based on that. Nobody can borrow money. Nobody can access capital. And that's one of the reasons there's such a shortage. So when we look at it, when we say there's a shortage of money, actually, African cities are more expensive than equivalent cities in the rest of the world, up to 30% more expensive. And that means, what that actually means is that people tend to pay 30% more for the equivalent kind of accommodation. And that's what I mean by it's not a financial issue. There is money to do that. It's structural. And why is that? And the reason for that is because of the perception of Africa. So, and particularly with housing, because housing funding is long-term, which if we look at that with continent risk and country risk and currency risk, and then the project risk, it all adds to the cost of the capital, which is why financing is so expensive. And that's why the centralized system, the centralized financial system doesn't work. And one of the other things, Maria, is that you will know, coming from the centralized methodology, it's so open to corruption. So whenever there's a building project, it tends to be large scale. So it's big financial institutions, big development institutions that come in and create these big projects. And as soon as that happens, it's an open book effectively for corruption, for mismanagement, for non-delivery, and which again drives up the costs. So our whole objective here is to be able to decentralize, to bring the power to the people in order for them to be able to find their own solutions in the housing arena. And in order to do that, we need to find a funding mechanism that gets housing funding directly to the end user through intermediaries, through trusted intermediaries initially. And that's effectively what we're doing. One of the challenges that we're seeking also to address, particularly with the Fund Zero, is if we start to address this backlog of housing, 500 million units, if we begin to address it utilizing the same thinking that we've done in the past, the impact on the environment is going to be drastic. So, as you can imagine, in fact, we need more building in Africa than China has done in the last 20 years. So the impact on the environment, the globe cannot sustain that. The challenge with building is that all the building structures, all the technologies, all the infrastructure is set up for traditional building. So we also have to find ways to support new and green building technologies. And that's very much part of the discussion and the focus around what we're trying to do is how do we support funding mechanisms that reward value, not just return. And that's part of what you'll see, what I'll discuss in a little bit more detail in terms of Fund Zero, Project Zero. So I'm going to leave it there for now, and we'll come back to that. But really then maybe to describe a little bit more about Project Zero. Oh, you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. So to address the environmental issues, if you can see here, the Mozambique, a country in southeastern Africa, is one of the poorest countries in the world. You've got a link to, I'm not sure if you know the link, obviously the Portuguese colonial link. It was also a Portuguese colony. But because of where Mozambique sits, it's very vulnerable to climate change. So it sits in the Mozambique Channel between Madagascar and Africa, and it's now been hit by all these cyclones that come through. And because the vast majority of the people build their own homes, because they don't have access to capital, they don't have access to proper infrastructure, they tend to build their own homes with basically incorrect building techniques. So their housing is not secure for cyclones. So it's not cyclone proof and it's not stable when that comes through. So our whole objective here is to demonstrate that we can assist in terms of climate building, that we can start to build CO2 climate friendly housing, let's put it that way. Our objective is to get to CO2 negative, but actually we're just trying to build climate friendly housing, but to supply funding for people who need it most in order to be able to do that. So as I said before, Mozambique has 600 mortgages, which means that there's no access to capital. But also what happens is when there's no access to capital, there's no structure, there's no building systems that enable that to happen. So in other words, there are no suppliers. Because there's no demand, there's no suppliers. So we're partnering with a local provider on the ground called Casa Real. And Casa Real has built the first $10,000 home. Traditionally, the lowest priced home in Mozambique was the lowest price was $45,000 because the financial system is geared to that top market. So our objective with working with Casa Real is that Casa Real has focused on the affordable market. So they are building incremental homes in Beira, one of the most climate impacted cities in Mozambique, and they build affordable homes. So our objective is to find a mechanism whereby we can use decentralized funding to enable access for more people at affordable rates, and to support that in terms of Project Zero, particularly with a climate-friendly building methodology. Because one of the challenges is that with concrete and bricks, we've spent decades convincing people to build with Western building standards. And the irony of that is that they're so environmentally unfriendly. But what the result of that is that it's a brick and mortar home has become aspirational. Everybody wants bricks and mortar. So if we're going to change to more modular and environmentally friendly building technologies, there's a resistance. So we have to test the market and go through market acceptance in order for that to happen. So our objective with Project Zero is to test two things. One is to test the decentralized funding model to be able to enable funding to flow, affordable funding to flow directly to the end user for environmentally friendly building technologies. So that's really what we're trying to do. So the outcome of the project. So what we've focused on for Project Zero, because our objective is to build a financial system, though, we know from a technology perspective and a smart contract perspective, those are things that we can manage internally. So ironically, those become easier to manage. Delivery on the ground with trusted partners is what we wanted to demonstrate to the community, that we can marry technology with practical implementation on the ground, real world implementation. That's our objective with Project Zero. So to demonstrate that we can use this technology to provide real world solutions. So the outcome of Project Zero from our Catalyst funding project, what we've called Project Zero, is to deliver an entry level. And by entry level, we're talking about just a simple home, which can be built on incrementally. The objective being to get that priced at $10,000 as a starting point. To prove the market acceptance of this environmentally friendly building. And very importantly, it's also to secure a relationship with commercial bank. So Casa Real has been working with a local bank in terms of mortgages. But if you're informal and you have informal income, which is the vast majority of, as we know, the developing world, there's no record of income, there's no proof of capability of paying. So what our objective is to utilize a lease to buy methodology so that the person can lease their home, and that lease over time, and we're working with a mortgage provider to provide after 3 years, that we have proved that they can pay that lease, that they can pay that mortgage, and therefore they have access to a mortgage after 3 years. So in other words, we'll do a lease to buy for 3 years at an affordable rate, after which the mortgage will be taken up by the bank. So what that enables us to do is to be able to reutilize the funding flow. And I'll show that from a systems perspective. So that's the objective of our project in terms of the Catalyst project. So it's to deliver that and to demonstrate the fund flow, that it can work and we can address it on the ground. Now, as I said, many people immediately assume Mozambique, poorest country in the world, is this actually a viable, practical opportunity? And what our research has shown is that at this rate, we are able to address 45% of the lower income groups. That is a total addressable market of about 4 million units just in Mozambique. In other words, between this high level of market that addresses the top 5% and the completely unaddressed market, there is a significant market opportunity to be able to supply affordable funding. And that's the objective of what we're seeking to achieve in the Project Zero, and the potential to grow this for Cardano, as you can imagine. This kind of requirement, overall, Africa needs over $1 trillion to be able to start building this infrastructure. So this is a methodology of proving that we can do it on a practical basis. That's our objective. I'm a co-founder of Empowa. I'm an African. I'm born and bred in Zimbabwe and lived in Africa for the vast majority of my life and been involved in utilizing technology for development for a significant number of years. Phil, my co-founder, is a software expert and has been involved in development of large-scale systems in Australia, particularly in education and other environments. He's also been an active member of Cardano since 2018. I'm a noob to Cardano. I've been coming from a practical background. I'm not exposed to the blockchain environment or the community, but I am so excited about this community. I'm so excited about what we can do, about how this decentralization and empowerment can really make a fundamental difference to what we're doing. So please have a look at our website for the rest of the team as well. I don't want to go through all detail, but what is important is if you look at our team and our advisors, we have extensive experience of delivery on the ground, what we can do practically. And we're also now looking to build our skills in the technology environment to be able to use this. So we're open to discussions with people, the technical staff, with technical, in order to really develop a proper, world-class quality solutions for this fundamental challenge.
So, Glenn, how much money are you asking from the treasury?
We've asked for $60,000.
Mm-hmm.
And as I say, our objective there is what we're seeking to achieve is, because we're seeking to develop the platform, and that will be done through a token issue, through a utility token. We're not seeking the community to support that. What we are asking from the community is, as I said, to demonstrate the practical projects on the ground and those relationships. We wanted to prove to the community, the broader Cardano community, that we have these relationships and that we can deliver the biggest challenge, which is projects on the ground, and to focus on an environmental aspect as well, which is a key part around our application, is to prove market acceptance at the market level of more environmentally friendly building technologies and methodologies, which is a key part around what we're doing.
Is your team where you are located, or everybody's working remotely? And who's going to be on the ground in Mozambique to make sure that these houses are delivered and constructed in a safe and good way, and will bring some value back? How the house that will be bought from someone by 10,000, how does 10,000 come back to us and keep going and feeding the networking?
Yes, okay, thank you, great question. So how it will work is the Casa Real is our delivery partner on the ground. So as we said, we seek to be Africa's largest property developer and not develop one property. So we're a platform that links property developers and tenants and financial systems to capital. So that's our objective. So Casa Real, a proven affordable housing deliverer in Mozambique, is our delivery partner. We have a relationship with Casa Real that will enable us to give them the funds in order to deliver, and we will project manage that. So that's how we will deliver the actual housing on the ground through Casa Real, the delivery partner. As you say, from a systems platform, we're a diverse and distributed organization, but on the ground, we have people on the ground and then management on the ground in order to manage that. So the objective is to build those units and then demonstrate that the returns will start to flow from that rent to buy methodology. So the whole thing around it is that it's sustainable, that there are returns to be generated. And our objective with it is also, after 3 years, to prove that we can get all of that capital back through the relationship potentially. Maybe that will work. That's our objective, is to prove that with the traditional bank on the ground. Ideally, obviously, we would like to be able to get that so that we could do the lease to buy for 10 years and that we could manage that so that we could bring the mortgage rate down significantly. That would be our objective. So if we can generate enough interest and income, not income, capital effectively, to be able to invest, to be able to demonstrate that, to be able to demonstrate the value, we could do that for the longer periods. And that is our objective. But for this initial project, we said 3 years, and to demonstrate that it works and to demonstrate that it actually will be able to integrate into the financial systems.
I see. So the $6,000 you're asking is to develop a platform that will include a token where you're going to be selling this token to get income to keep the project going. Is that
not
correct?
To keep the project going. This 60,000 will build the housing units, okay? And then the objective is to demonstrate that the rentals will be able to flow. The platform development will be happening parallel to that. So that will be happening through the token, through the actual business, through the token sale, we're doing a private and a public token sale in order to develop the platform to manage those flows. Absolutely. But the project itself is to be able to demonstrate that we can invest into housing and that returns can flow. That's the key part around it. So it's the practical implementation of that, and then the technology part underlies that. So it's not, we don't need funding on an ongoing basis to manage that. That project will be effectively standalone because that money will have been invested into the housing, and we will be doing a lease to buy to demonstrate the returns so that the money is coming back together with return for the individuals, plus to build the stories, to demonstrate the stories so that we can demonstrate the utility, the impact. When we talk about the stories, we talk about the impact around the woman empowerment that we're talking about, the environmental impact, the economic impact of just that 60,000 investment. The impact of that is significant on the ground, what that can do. And we want to be able to report back on that, back to the community of what that does, as well as the financial aspects.
Mm. The other thing I was thinking that you said this is an area susceptible to natural phenomena. How the building you're building is more a strong structure to keep the house working and going well while all these things happen in nature. How your structure is better than what they have already, as you said, that is a very delicate area there in the globe.
Thank you. And again, fantastic question. Thank you. And thank you for highlighting it, because it's a key element. Because through utilizing Casa Real is building and will build a cyclone-proof structure. So the whole environment, so that house will be able to survive a cyclone. So it will be able to withstand the cyclone coming through and will still be standing once the cyclone has passed through. It's a key element around resilience. So it's around resilience for the house, as well as resilience for the owner, for the tenant, initially as a tenant, but ultimately the owner of that house. It's also around financial resilience for them, because as you can imagine, for the vast majority, they don't have insurance. So when the cyclone comes through and their house is destroyed, they have to have those resources themselves to rebuild. So every time a cyclone comes through, when we see those large, $10 million damage, etc., that's individuals' lives that are being impacted. That's not, a global number that somebody's going to replace. Every single person has to come through and rebuild that themselves. And that is one of the key elements around this kind of housing, is that it's resilient for the environment and resilient for the owner, which builds financial resilience. And again, I think from the project that we're seeking to do, the whole Empowa project, property is one of the fundamental building blocks of safety and of wealth. And that's really what we're seeking to achieve here, is how do we enable people to build these in a way that is safe, that is resilient, that is environmentally resilient, environmentally friendly, and affordable. Right now, we know the centralized systems have not worked. That's why there's a backlog of 50 million homes. We have to find a way of bringing it back to reality that makes it affordable and makes people able to resolve these issues. And that's one of the biggest issues that we're solving.
I keep asking myself, why Mozambique? Why Mozambique? Why Mozambique? Why am I asking that? Because we need keeping the system going. So let's see, you get funded, you build some houses, and it's go for renting or leasing or whatever it is. The money keep going, but it's a huge amount of money for a very low how to say interest to it to come back again and build a new house or a new system. I'm gonna cut this bit that I'm talking to you, but I'm having difficulty to follow up how your system feeds itself. You show that graphic; it's very complex.
Yeah.
Okay, and people would like to know how your system is. What's the word?
Sustainable?
Sustainable.
Yeah.
Sustainable. I think you
Yeah.
explain, but I don't get it the way you say it. I don't know if I
Okay.
didn't understand or whatever it is.
Yeah, no, great. And thank you. And it's a great question because, again, this is one of our challenges in terms of communication. Because the important part is effectively.
I'm going to ask the questions right because I'm going to take all the bits off. I'm going to
Sure.
say, how is your system sustainable?
Great question. Because what is important is to remember is at the end of the day, this becomes a property investment portfolio. And property investment portfolios are sustainable. So effectively what this is that is really what we're building, is an African property investment portfolio that gives returns whereby we have de-risked to a large extent all those aspects that we highlighted at the beginning of a risk, that when people talk around investing into African projects, when they talk about a large project, they want to charge 30% and get a 30% return because of the risk. Our objective is to reduce that rate right down, but it still is sustainable. It still provides a return. If in the developed world we're getting 0, 1, 2% on our money, we're able to, between 30% and 2%, there's margin. And the thing is that we want to bring the rate down for people on the ground. If you pay 45% for a mortgage, obviously between 45% and 2% for somebody who's providing capital, we're able to provide that margin. So it's completely sustainable because the capital provides return. So in fact, that's what we're looking at. And if you look at our tokens, you'll see that a large proportion of that's the objective, is to be able to build effectively, it's a property portfolio. It's a decentralized ownership of a property portfolio with ongoing returns. That's effectively the Empowa platform.
Okay. So
does that answer your question?
It does. So thank you very much for your time to come to my channel, show your projects. We have like 6,000 followers, all Cardano lovers, and I hope and I wish you all the best and see you soon.
Thanks, Maria. Thanks very much. Thanks for your time.
Bye-bye.